How do you promote gender equality and social inclusion in your projects in Uganda and Kenya?
So I work for an Austrian development NGO called ICEP, and we have been implementing a program together with the Austrian Development Agency in Kenya and Uganda since 2015. And in 2015, it started off as a program to improve the relevance and quality of the training that vocational training institutions in those two countries provide. We didn't really have a concrete plan on where this journey would take us. It ended up being that by choice of the vocational training institutes we collaborated with, something that is very, very close to the dual training that we have here in Central Europe is being implemented in both countries. Obviously, it doesn't, meet the criteria, the very strict and strong and high criteria of the Swiss or the German or the whatever Austrian dual training curricula, but it does have these key elements in it. We reach about 5,000 youths every year through all of these put together, and about 3,500 to 4,000 of them do a training that includes elements of the dual training approach.
And what's the role of GESI in this dual VET project?
We ventured into the gender topic in what was the third phase of our collaboration with these partners. The first phase was to kind of pilot our way into what became dual training. The second phase was to then consolidate what we had started in the first 3 years, and now the third stage of the program, which started in 2021, because of the imposition of ADA that made everybody adhere to this gender marker criteria, we introduced the gender component into dual training. It started off with a very thorough gender analysis about what the status was, not only within the training institutions themselves, but also in the market, in the job market afterwards. We included that on purpose in the program. It was part of the activities of the program. And I would advise anybody to do it that same way, mainly because of the concept of ownership. If you are part of a study and then you identify with the results of that study. If that study is, brought from the outside and presented to you, then you're always kind of dubious whether that that's really necessary or whether it's just an ideological standpoint from the guy who did this analysis. Once we had done that, and once also the partners were very aware of the situation of gender in vocational training, the situation of gender in the workplace for handicraft jobs, we supported the partners in the elaboration of what we call the gender action plans. They themselves elaborate a plan of where they want to go, what they want to achieve, and by when and how, and so on and so forth. Again, quite important for the concept of owning what you do.
More generally speaking, from your experience, what are the main barriers for gender equity and social inclusion regarding the training companies, and what kind of activities did your partners implement to overcome these challenges?
Interchange between the training center and the private companies is so important that there has to be a person responsible. It can't just be the management or the teachers. There needs to be a person responsible for that. We called this person the industrial liaison officer, and it was a person who was working for the organization anyhow, had done the work anyhow, but all of a sudden he or in a number of cases she had a title and felt responsible and pushed the issue. So when we introduced gender into the whole equation, we said, well, we will immediately do the same thing also, and nominate the gender officer. Or rather, not we will nominate the gender officer, but that the companies pick, that the VTIs pick a gender officer, and that they identify a person who will then be responsible for, all things gender and respond to demands regarding gender equity. Obviously, the companies are, they are their own companies. They can do whatever they want, as long as they don't break the law. So again, also with the companies, you have to meet them where they are. Show them that another way is quite possible, is the way to go and the way to have success.
So it's the really individual work with each company and taking up their fears or concerns and really work on it. And what you need, what I could hear, is long-term partnerships with.
You need a very long-term partnership. That's quite right. So yes, we need long-term commitments. It is an individual kind of thing. The relationship between the company and the VTI is crucial, hence the ILO and the value of the ILO. We elaborated a log frame, and we needed to integrate, we needed indicators that illustrate whether stereotypes have been softened, if you will, And one of the indicators was, okay, women in what is a bad name, but we refer to it anyhow as male-dominated trades. So car mechanic, it's a trade that's usually associated with men, less so with women. And what's the rate of change, if you will, And we have now women being trained in what's referred to as male-dominated trades. That's 40%. In Austria, we have like 5. I think at times the donor agencies expect something from the actors in developing countries that they would like to see in our own countries, but don't.
We heard several times that gender equity, diversity management, social inclusion, however you want to call it, should be a business case for the training companies. What do you think about this statement in your experience from your project?
If a company realizes, or if a business realizes that having a woman in this job isn't more cumbersome, isn't more expensive, isn't generating less outputs than a male counterpart, and they get the same bang for the buck, if you will, then that's the business case done.
Mm-hmm.
It's as simple as that.
Great.
And so you don't have to try to create a business case for it. You don't have to try to sell them falsehoods that women are actually more effective than, because there's they can need one bad experience and they will call you a liar, and a lot of work can have gone down the drain. Who they hire and what they hire the person for is entirely up to the company, if you will, but once they realize that actually there is with big data it's easier to follow also, that they realize actually, for electricians, women are actually excellent because they tend to be more detail oriented and tidier than men. It's one of the findings we've had in, I think it was Uganda. If they decide to then hire more women, great, but for a business case reason, to make gender equity a business case, I find it difficult. I think the business case has to make gender equity. We as an NGO, we and our partners in the developing countries, we can try and reduce the gender stereotypes that people have in their heads, and maybe open them up to accepting women apprentices, and then realize that the women apprentices are equally good as their male counterparts, and then hiring an equal number of women as their male counterparts. For hiring decisions to be merit-based and not because of stereotypes that you have in your head. That's basically what I think the project can contribute to gender equity.